Okay, here we go. Made one more attempt. Hopefully we can hear this time. I'm going to do, this is our first real live because I know you can hear it and I know you can hear it. So you can hear it and I know you can hear it. As opposed to the previous attempt, I didn't think anybody could hear it, but you could, which probably sounded pretty dumb. That all being said, I Gen X, kind of a socialist, not closeted about it. I'm a veteran, former Eagle Scout. I'm a dad, and I have some thoughts. And you'll learn more about me as we go. But those are a few. I live up here on the left edge, Oregon, within 100 miles of the coast, which means I'm probably subject to the Border Patrol, given that they get to patrol anything within 100 miles of the border. And since the coast is the border and we're only about 70 miles from it, I think I'm in there. So I have all that much more reason to worry about ice, baby. And trust me, ice needs to be crushed. Ice needs crushing. Crush the ice. It crushes real nice. Melts away like the silly little hardcore snowflakes they are. Anyway, yep. One of my biggest concerns right now is that we have a circumstance where we have a legit reason to have all of these tanks and troops in the nation's capital. We've decided to move all of these tanks and troops into the nation's capital for the Army's birthday on the 14th, which seems to also coincide with this attack on LA, which is pretty unprecedented. They probably could have waited until after their big parade to have done these major ice raids on the West Coast, except that the major ice raids on the West Coast play into what they're doing. And if you're going to follow that even further down the road, down the rabbit hole, well, let's see. We're doing all of these attacks. We're attacking the West Coast, trying to cause trying to cause an insurrection from the left, or something they can call that. We've made up an excuse to move a whole bunch of tanks and military personnel. Presumably, interestingly enough, a unit from Texas, not a unit from very close to DC, but from Texas, which makes me wonder about the loyalty of said units and who's in charge of those units. And if they didn't cherry pick the military tanker units they were bringing up there, just like they cherry pick their judges in the courts they take their cases to. So, yeah, the idea isn't far-fetched that they picked a commander that would do their bidding in Washington, D.C. against elected officials. Now, I know, this is all hyperbole. Well, did you know he's going to Camp David this weekend before the parade? They're meeting with all kinds of military and Homeland Security personnel at Camp David, not at the White House. If this was just, regular BS, they'd just deal with that at the White House, right? But no, they need secrecy. They need deniability. And yeah, they're meeting up at fucking Martha's fucking Vineyard, or not Martha, Camp David. I'm sorry. Going to Camp David to meet before the big parade and before they push even harder on this insurrection in California. Threatened to arrest the governor of California, which is ridiculous. This whole insurrection thing is ridiculous. I mean, sorry. To my brothers in the National Guard, California National Guard, fuck you, sit down, boyo. The fuck is wrong with you? I don't care if you've ever read the Constitution, frankly. You need to call that girl, that smart girl you knew back in high school, and ask her what she thinks. Ask her whether this is an illegal order that you are performing. Oh, I know. Well, we just have us guarding federal property. We're not actually doing anything. You are doing something, because the order to do that, the unspoken part of that order, is to intimidate your fellow citizens. That is not what you signed up for. At no point did you sign up in the military to terrorize your own your neighbors? Okay, other citizens. No. Terrorize foreign armies that deserve it? Sure, that was on the list. That was on the paperwork. Terrorizing your neighborhood? No. Even the National Guard, yeah, you're supposed to deal with the neighborhood. You're supposed to help your neighborhood. Help your neighborhood in emergencies. Not shoot at members of your neighborhood. Not repress the rights of the neighbors of the people in your neighborhood. It's not what you signed up for the National Guard for. And I don't care what that stupid sergeant above you says, okay? If you have a dumbass sergeant, okay, that is telling you that you're being a patriot doing this in LA, this is a unlawful order. And it is okay for you to disobey that chode bag. I'm telling you, disobey the unlawful order. Because remember, I was just following orders, didn't work for the Nazis. I was just following orders, did not work out for the Nazis. Okay? You didn't escape punishment because you were just following orders. In fact, odds are you're going to face a whole lot more punishment than those giving the orders. Read through history. It's the way it works. Don't follow the unlawful orders. Sit down and say you don't know what to do. Worst thing they can do is give you an Article 15, which will be washed out later because you will have disobeyed an unlawful order. Article 15 is the only thing they can do to you for sitting down and not doing it. So go. Sit down. Sit your ass down. You know how to do it. You're in the National Guard. Come on. And the Marines, again, guys, you swore the oath to the Constitution, not to Donald Trump, not to your commander, not to your sergeant. The Constitution, and by that very nature, that Constitution is the people of the United States. That's what that document represents, the people of the United States. So, for all of you soldiers out there, this veteran is telling you, you don't have to follow an unlawful order. And on this soldier tip, okay, I know this is not going to be a popular thing, but as a veteran, I'm kind of a socialist, I guess, but I'm also very much a fiscal conservative, if that's possible, in certain ways. And when I say fiscally conservative, I mean, I just like plenty of old school Republicans, I don't like an unfunded mandate. Okay. If you're not paying for it, you can't order me to do it, kind of thing. Right? Right. Okay. To this oath, we swore to the Constitution. We have some muggernuts out there, and we have some chodes out there that seem to think that they get to deputize themselves to enforce the rules of the commander-in-chief. And again, pretty twisted because you didn't swear an oath to Donald Trump. If you're a veteran, odds are you swore an oath to Obama or a Bush, or a Bush or a Reagan, as I did. So that's who you swore your allegiance to the Constitution under. But it was to the Constitution. Okay. Second step. There is an expiration on that. Just like any other contract, there is an expiration. When's that expiration? Are they still doing anything for you? No. Are you still getting paid? No. Then the fucking contract is over. Okay? If you signed up for an 8-year contract and you had to do 2 years active and 6 years inactive, or 4 years active and 4 years inactive, and that 8 years is up, you're done. Unless you went back and signed another one, you're done. That oath is you don't have to go back and defend the Constitution after that. You should, but you're not under any contractual obligation, because if you were, they would be contractually obligated to compensate you for such, and they haven't. Okay? And here's the other reason. Why, and I know people are like, oh, that's not true. Oh, that's not true. Really? Then why do you need to take it more than once? Why do you have to take it every time you re-enlist? Why? Because that oath is good for the length of that enlistment, for the length of the contract. If it wasn't, then you'd only have to take the damn oath once. Now, I know I took it more than once, and I only enlisted once. They made me take it when I enlisted. Then they made me take the damn oath a second time when I signed the official paperwork when I flew out. Didn't realize until then that I still could have walked out. I could have not gone and been under no obligation. If the day before I was supposed to fly out to basic training, if I had said, no, I'm not going, I'd be fine. I didn't know that. Oh, if I'd known that, I wouldn't have gone, because trust me, for that last 30 days before I left, I was trying to figure out ways to not go. I did not want to go in the military. That's a whole other story. The point is, that oath you do to the Constitution, it's really only good for the length of your enlistment. Now, yeah, it's longer than the 2 years or 4 years or 3 years active duty. They're generally 8-year terms. X amount is active duty, and the rest is inactive ready reserve. You got to be available for those 8 years in case they need you. Once that 8 years is up, that oath is no good. If it wasn't, why do they got to ask if you want to come back at 10 years? Why do they got to ask you to re-enlist? Why do they ask you to redo it? Again, so look at it, guys. Think about it. Okay? You don't have an oath that you have to maintain well into your 70s or 80s. You probably have a moral obligation to try and, at least observe the rules of the Constitution. But yeah, these people, I'm required to do something about this. Sit down, Francis. Nobody asked you. Okay? All right, next up. Now let's move on to the most pressing thing. LA. What's going on here in LA? This is ridiculous. And I cannot believe. I heard somebody recently, I can't remember who it was, somebody, I don't know, one of the talking heads mentioned something, or maybe he was I think he was a former government official, former Republican. It was a pretty smart idea. Gavin Newsom ought to go ahead and activate all of the National Guard units in California and call in all the mutual aid for all the National Guard units, all the county sheriffs, every mutual aid thing they have. Call them all up and then idle them somewhere so that Trump can't call them up, because they've already been activated and they're under the orders of their governor. Then if Trump wants to bring troops into California, he's got to take that extra step and go get troops from Arizona or New Mexico or Utah or Nevada. Okay. And I'm not sure that he's going to be able to do that without the rest of the nation losing their mind. The Arizonans would be all for it. They would love Arizona National Guard. I'm sure would jump on the buses, pay their own way to go shoot California. So that's not a good bet. They'll do it. But the rest of the country would lose their mind if you started using Arizona troops to quell an insurrection in California. You see, as soon as we do that, we open the door to foreign actors. What's that? Yes, we do. Because if we can take troops from Minnesota and take them over here to such and such and do something, well, then the Chinese can send some fucking troops over too. Russians, maybe they'll send some people over from the Wagner group. Maybe somebody will hire somebody from the Wagner group, or maybe somebody will hire, from Prince, this Eric Prince and his fucking Blackwater goons. Maybe they'll hire those troops to come in and work in the United States. So we start crossing state lines. But yeah, that was not a bad idea. Have Gavin Newsom go ahead and activate all of his National Guard troops in California. That would probably be a way to do it. So, yeah, ICE has got to get crushed. It's ridiculous. Anyway, Let's see. What did I touch on? I touched on. Yeah, let me just reiterate. It's a little creepy that we're getting all of these. They've come up with a good excuse to have tanks in the nation's capital, and on the date they set, and they've just gone ahead and they've manufactured an insurrection circumstance right before they happen to need those tanks in DC. I don't like the idea that if things really went south in California, that Trump would have the ability and the equipment available to him to put DC and, for that matter, New York City, probably in all likelihood as well, under siege. Gotta ask anybody out there know what troop or what the fleet movements look like? Do we have naval resources heading up the eastern seaboard as well? I mean, again, the excuse might be, you got that many tanks in DC. Man, you could. The downside about doing a parade is when you're in the military, if you're on maneuvers, you don't walk in straight lines. You stagger your men, you stay a certain distance apart, you don't travel too close together because it makes it too easy to get two tanks with one bomb. But to be able to strafe, to have aircraft strafe the whole line of people. And you can't jump out of the way and, take cover and what have you. Parade, nobody's trying to take cover. In fact, they shouldn't even have enough staff to fire the guns. They should have enough people there to maintain it and drive it, not a full crew. You don't need them all. But, again, that's a whole lot of hardware with bullseyes on it. If you're not going to have it prepared for war, if you do have it prepared for war, why in the hell are we trying to encircle DC with tanks? And I know it sounds crazy paranoid. It really does. Until it fucking happens. And I'm telling you right now that I would be one of those people that if I were a member of Congress, if I was a senator or a representative, I might not want to be within the confines of Washington, D.C. on the 13th, the day before the big parade. I'd want to be gone by the 12th because it'd be just like them saying, yeah, some people are figuring it out and they're going to leave on the 13th. So they're going to leave on the 14th. They're not going to go to the parade. They're going to get out of town on the 14th. So we better strike on the 13th, the night before. Go in and quietly just arrest all these people. And by the time anybody realizes they're gone, we'll have tanks wrapped around the city and there'll be nothing they can do. I know it's a scary thought. But did you think you would ever see U.S. Marines being sent into L.A. for a civil disturbance that doesn't even rank with them not making the playoffs? I mean, come on. L.A. does more damage to downtown when they get ejected in the first round of the playoffs than has happened over the last 4 days. This is nothing. They have done nothing. Okay. Any damage is the Fed. I have yet to hear of any injuries to cops at this point. Nothing I've heard of. Plenty of protesters, plenty of people in the media. I mean, it's one thing for protesters to be getting hurt at a higher rate than the police. That's you get what you pay for. Maybe. But the media shouldn't be doubling the casualty rate, and they currently are. So that just tells you how it's not an insurrection in It's barely a protest. They have food carts. Leave them be. All right. We've touched on the riots. We've touched on my worries about the 14th. We've got troops deployed today, yesterday, and they're going to have this big parade in D.C. I'm telling you, D.C., they're hoping that somebody will give them a good enough excuse to put the entire nation on lockdown. And again, if they've got troops surrounding D.C., they can make that escalate. They can go ahead and try to take custody of people in D.C. and get them to react, or get people to react on their behalf, and then they can cascade it. And then at that point, once they hold D.C., they can make anything they wanted to happen. So we are at a very dangerous point with all this shit going on, and train loads of tanks headed for D.C. Just going to let them roll them right into the center of D.C. Hope I'm wrong. Barbary Allen out.